old days when not the lifestyle we lived, but just the good times and hanging out with family.
I'm not that person anymore.
I'm not that person either, and I can't tell you how loved and accepted for who I am I feel when I'm...
Micah, Mariah, and even Ethan to a degree have chosen to go about family relationships in a different way. For them, forgiveness has looked like...
The Plath family has been known for their image of perfection, the smiling faces, the golden children, and the parents who insisted they had the answers for everything. But that picture-perfect portrait cracked the moment Olivia's voice came through a recording. Her words carried weight, pain, and truth that the Plaths worked hard to keep buried. And just when the dust seemed like it might settle, Veronica stepped forward, refusing to bite her tongue, refusing to let silence protect the image anymore. Her voice joined Olivia's, and together they shook the ground beneath Ethan and Micah, exposing the fragile foundation of a family built on control. Hi friends, my name is Sarah, and welcome back to Sister Wives Daily. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave me a comment because I want to hear where you stand after this one. Are you with Olivia for daring to hold receipts, or do you side with Ethan and Micah, caught in the mess between loyalty and truth? This isn't just another bit of family drama. It's an explosion years in the making. Olivia has always been the one standing outside of the Plath bubble, willing to challenge the rules, question the control, and push back when the family expected silence. That's what made her such a lightning rod in this story. And when she finally brought her truth forward in audio form, there was no ignoring it anymore. The control that Kim and Barry held over their children for so long began to unravel in public, where everyone could hear it. Then came Veronica. She wasn't going to sit back and let the story twist in favor of Ethan or Micah. She called them out directly, shaking the illusion that the boys were simply innocent bystanders. Her words forced viewers to confront what many had already suspected, that silence can sometimes make you just as guilty as the ones pulling the strings, Ethan found. Himself once again stuck between two worlds, the wife who wanted truth out in the open and the family he was raised to protect, no matter the cost. Micah, who has worked so hard to break free and build his own identity, suddenly found himself dragged back into the chaos, his independence questioned as Veronica refused to let him off the hook. This is the heart of the Plath story: control versus truth. A family desperate to protect its image at all costs, and individuals who refuse to carry the weight of silence any longer. Olivia and Veronica's voices have made sure of one thing: nothing about the Plath family will ever look the same again. When we look back at Olivia's journey with the Plath family, it's impossible to ignore how much of an outsider she was from the very beginning. From the moment she stepped into Ethan's world, it was clear that her presence disrupted the picture Kim and Barry had so carefully painted. Ethan was raised in a home where sugar was restricted, television was forbidden, and outside influences were seen as a threat to purity. For Olivia, who grew up in a more balanced environment, the rules didn't just feel strange, they felt suffocating. And as much as she tried to respect where Ethan came from, she couldn't ignore how damaging those restrictions had been for him. That clash became obvious during the earliest seasons of Welcome to Plathville. Olivia wasn't just a wife, she was the lightning rod for everything Kim and Barry feared. She encouraged Ethan to try new things, to taste sugar, to travel, to actually live outside of the cage he had grown up in. And in the Plath household, that kind of influence was seen as rebellion. Kim and Barry drew lines in the sand almost immediately. They questioned Olivia's role, they pushed back on her freedom, and eventually they made it clear she wasn't welcome in the family space unless she played by their rules. For Ethan, that was unbearable. Viewers saw him torn apart season after season, trying to balance his loyalty to Olivia with his desperate, childlike need to please his parents. Those scenes where he broke down in tears, unable to reconcile the two worlds, revealed just how much control Kim and Barry had over him. Olivia became both his partner and his scapegoat, blamed for pushing him too far, but also the only one who truly understood the cost of the control he had grown up under. What makes Olivia's perspective so powerful is that she was never fully inside the Plath bubble. She didn't grow up under Kim and Barry's rules, so she could see what Ethan and his siblings couldn't. To her, the restrictions weren't normal. They were a sign of unhealthy control. And when she pointed that out, when she asked questions that nobody else dared to ask, it forced the cracks in the Plath family image to show. That's why fans often describe Olivia as both a villain and a hero. To some, she's the one who drove Ethan away from his family. To others, she's the one who saved him from drowning in silence. And Olivia didn't stop at Ethan. Her presence affected the other siblings too. Mariah found in Olivia a kindred spirit, someone who encouraged her to wear what she wanted, to sing, to explore who she really was outside of her parents' rigid structure. Micah, too, found confidence in Olivia's willingness to break the rules. By simply existing as herself, she gave the younger Plaths a glimpse of a life where control didn't dictate every choice. That ripple effect is part of what makes Olivia so controversial in the family narrative. But with that influence came resistance. Kim and Barry didn't just disagree with Olivia, they actively pushed against her, creating tension that eventually split Ethan from his parents. Viewers remember the painful scenes when Ethan confronted his father in the driveway, refusing to let Kim and Barry have the final word about his marriage. Olivia stood right there, refusing to back down, refusing to let Ethan crumble under the woo. 8 of his parents' disapproval. That was the moment many fans realized Olivia wasn't just a bystander. She was actively pulling Ethan toward independence, whether the Plaths liked it or not. Which brings us to now, to the audio. Olivia isn't just sharing opinions anymore. She's presenting proof. The recording captures the essence of what she's been saying all along, that the family's version of events doesn't line up with reality. For years, the Plaths have tried to control the narrative, to keep the public from seeing the full picture of what really went on inside their home. But Olivia holding on to this evidence changes everything. It's no longer just her word against theirs. And this is exactly why her role matters so much. Olivia isn't bound by the same loyalty that keeps the Plath siblings quiet. She has lived inside their world, but she doesn't belong to it. That outsider status gives her the freedom to speak when others stay silent. When she drops receipts, people listen, because she's been consistent from the start about the dangers of control. And now, with the audio out in the open, the Plaths can't brush it off as exaggeration or bitterness. It's Olivia's truth, and it challenges the carefully polished image Kim and Barry fought for years to maintain. As we head into this explosive chapter, one thing is clear. Olivia's willingness to expose what's been hidden sets the stage for a showdown between control and truth. And Ethan, stuck in the middle, is about to feel that tension more than anyone else. Ethan Plath has always been the one caught in the middle. From the very first season, viewers could feel the weight he carried. A young man raised under strict rules, trying desperately to make sense of a world that never gave him choices. When Olivia came into his life, she didn't just become his wife, she became the wedge that forced him to confront the control Kim and Barry had over him. And for Ethan, that confrontation was agonizing. Think back to those early scenes when Ethan would sit across from his parents, struggling to get words out, his face red with frustration. He wanted so badly to please them, but he also wanted the freedom Olivia promised. That tug of war left him broken more than once. Fans will never forget the driveway showdown with Kim and Barry. Ethan's tears, his anger, his refusal to let his parents dictate how he lived his married life. It was raw, painful, and revealing. For the first time, Ethan wasn't just the quiet son doing what was expected. He was a man standing up for himself, though barely holding it together. But even as he pushed back, Ethan never fully let go of that need to be loyal to his family. That's what makes his story so complicated. He loved Olivia, but he also loved the parents who raised him, even when their control left scars. His breakdowns weren't just about choosing a side. They were about losing one no matter what choice he made. Staying with Olivia meant cutting off his parents. Protecting his family meant betraying his wife. There was no outcome where Ethan could win. That history is exactly what makes the leaked audio so devastating for him. Olivia has always been outspoken, willing to call out what she sees as manipulation. Ethan, on the other hand, has struggled to put words to his feelings. Now, with Olivia's recording in the mix, the conflict isn't just private anymore, it's public. Everyone can hear what she's been saying all along, and by default, Ethan is forced to take a side. Does he stand with his wife, validating her truth? Or does he retreat to protect the family who raised him, even if it means denying what the world has now heard? And that's where Veronica's voice makes things even messier. By calling out both Ethan and Micah, she reframed the way fans looked at Ethan's struggle. Until now, many saw him as the victim. The boy pulled in two directions. too soft-hearted to fully stand up against his parents. But Veronica didn't let them off the hook. She pointed out that silence, even when it comes from a place of pain, still protects the people who caused harm. By staying quiet or refusing to fully back Olivia, Ethan risks enabling the very control he claims to hate. For Ethan, hearing that kind of criticism from someone outside the marriage cuts deep. He's already been accused of being passive, of letting Olivia do the heavy lifting in their battles with Kim and Barry. Now Veronica's whistleblowing forces him to confront what fans have whispered for seasons, that he can't keep living in the middle. At some point, he has to choose where his loyalty truly lies. What makes Ethan's position even harder is that viewers know how deeply he loves Olivia. When he broke down on camera over the possibility of losing her, it wasn't just a man afraid of being alone. It was a man terrified of being abandoned by everyone. His marriage gave him freedom, but it also cost him his family. Now, with the audio, that rift has been magnified for the entire world to see. And yet, Ethan's anger has always been unpredictable. One minute he's lashing out at Olivia, blaming her for the cracks in his relationship with his parents. The next, he's furious at Kim and Barry, refusing to let them dictate his marriage. That back and forth makes him relatable, but also frustrating to watch. Fans can feel his pain, but they also want him to take a stand and stop wavering. The leaked recording forces him into that corner. With Olivia's words out there, Ethan can't hide behind silence anymore. Every choice he makes will be judged. By Olivia, by his siblings, by Veronica, and by the audience who has watched him struggle season after season. This is the heart of Ethan's conflict. Loyalty versus truth. He can't have both. And Veronica's refusal to let him off the hook ensures that everyone watching sees him not just as a victim, but as someone responsible for what happens next. In the world of the Plaths, silence is no longer an option, and for Ethan, that realization may be the hardest one of all. Micah Plath's story has always felt like one of the biggest transformations to come out of Welcome to Plathville. When we first met him, he was just another quiet son on the farm, following the rules, doing what was expected, and living in the shadow of his parents' rigid control. Kim and Barry kept their children sheltered, far from the outside world, and Micah was no exception. But as the seasons rolled on, we watched him slowly carve out a life for himself, one that couldn't have been more different from the one he grew up in. Once Micah left the family home, it didn't take long for viewers to notice a change. He stepped into modeling, a career that would have been completely unimaginable back in Cairo, Georgia, where the Plaths raised their children with strict modesty rules and heavy restrictions. Suddenly, this quiet farm boy was standing in front of cameras, posing shirtless, traveling, and meeting new people. Micah wasn't just dipping his toes into freedom, he was diving headfirst into independence. And unlike Ethan, who often crumbled under the pressure of making choices outside his parents' influence, Micah seemed to thrive on it. What makes Micah's journey so fascinating is how differently he handled leaving compared to his siblings. For Ethan, every step away from Kim and Barry came with guilt and grief. For Mariah, breaking free was loud, emotional, and rebellious, marked by tears, music, and constant clashes with her parents. But Micah, he slipped into his new life almost effortlessly. He embraced the independence, he leaned into his career, and he didn't seem to look back with the same torment Ethan carried. That difference is what made viewers curious. Was Micah simply more adaptable, or was he avoiding the deeper pain by not talking about it at all? And that's exactly where Veronica's words hit the hardest. When she called out both Ethan and Micah, it wasn't just about what they had done, it was about what they hadn't done. For years, fans have noticed that while Micah has built this glamorous new life, he rarely speaks openly about the dysfunction he grew up in. Yes, he's admitted to being sheltered and naive, but compared to Olivia or even Mariah, his critiques of Kim and Barry have been softer, more careful, almost as if he doesn't want to confront just how damaging that environment really was. Veronica's whistleblowing shattered that silence. She pointed to Ethan and Micah as men who, in her view, avoided accountability. By choosing not to directly address the harm done, she suggested they were protecting the family's image, even if unintentionally. And coming from Veronica, someone close enough to see the truth, but far enough to speak without hesitation, those words carried a sting that fans couldn't ignore. For Micah, the criticism cut in a way that felt personal. He had worked so hard to create distance between himself and the drama, building a career, surrounding himself with new friends, and painting his own picture of success. But Veronica's voice pulled him right back into the chaos, forcing him to confront the uncomfortable question. Had he really broken free, or was he just running from the weight of it all? What makes this moment even more intense is how viewers reacted. Many fans agreed with Veronica, saying Micah often presented himself as above the drama, while still benefiting from the exposure the show brought him. Others defended him, pointing out that everyone heals differently, and maybe Micah's way of coping was simply to focus on the future rather than dwell on the past. Either way, Veronica had forced the conversation out into the open. And once again, the Plath family's carefully crafted image was being chipped away. This time not by Olivia alone, but by someone who refused to let Ethan and Micah stand quietly on the sidelines. Veronica's whistleblowing built a tension that couldn't be ignored. By calling them out, she made it clear that silence is its own form of complicity. And for Micah, who has always tried to walk a line between independence and family loyalty, that was a heavy accusation. Suddenly, the very freedom he prided himself on didn't seem so clean. His journey from farm boy to model wasn't just a story of personal success. It was now tied to the uncomfortable truth that he, like Ethan, might not have done enough to confront the dysfunction they both escaped from. That's why Veronica's words sting so deeply. They weren't just about the past, they were about the present, about how Micah continues to carry himself, about the silence he maintains. And in the context of Olivia's audio, those words made the whole family dynamic even messier. Because if Olivia is bringing receipts and Veronica is blowing the whistle, then staying quiet is no longer an option. For Micah, the transformation that once looked so glamorous is now under scrutiny. The question isn't just who he's become, but what truths he's still refusing to say out loud. When the audio surfaced, it wasn't just another moment of family drama. It was a seismic event that shook the very foundation of the Plath family's carefully controlled narrative. Olivia had long hinted that things weren't as picture-perfect as Kim and Barry portrayed, but this was different. This wasn't speculation or a side comment in a heated argument. This was evidence. Her voice, captured and shared, forced a spotlight on truths the Plaths had worked tirelessly to suppress. For years, the family projected an image of unity, discipline, and righteousness, but Olivia's audio cracked that facade wide open. The content of the audio revealed a tension that fans had always suspected, but had rarely heard confirmed in the family's own words. Olivia didn't just vent frustration. She laid bare the controlling dynamics, the suffocating expectations, and the pain she endured trying to fit into a system that seemed designed to break her spirit. For those who had watched her struggles with Kim play out across seasons, hearing the audio was like pulling back the curtain. It was raw, unfiltered, and deeply personal. Ethan, of course, was at the heart of it all. The audio made it painfully clear how divided he had become, torn between the loyalty he still felt toward his parents and siblings, and the truth his wife was desperate to expose. Fans had always known Ethan was conflicted, but Olivia's recording brought his struggle into sharper focus. Suddenly, his silence in past arguments seemed less like neutrality and more like paralysis. He wasn't avoiding taking sides. He was trapped, unable to betray either his family of origin or the woman he had promised to protect. For Micah, the audio struck a different chord. Unlike Ethan, Micah had embraced independence more fully, diving headfirst into modeling and building a life far removed from the rigid world he grew up in. But the audio forced him to reckon with the reality he often sidestepped, that while he may have escaped physically, the emotional control of the Plath family still lingered. Veronica's perspective came roaring into focus here. She argued that both Ethan and Micah needed to stop hiding behind excuses. To her, the audio was proof that avoidance wasn't just hurting themselves, it was perpetuating dysfunction. And that's what made the audio so devastating. It wasn't just Olivia's voice, it was a mirror held up to the entire family. Kim and Barry's influence, once cloaked in religious devotion and parental authority, was now exposed as something far more troubling. A system of control that demanded silence, obedience, and the erasure of individuality. Olivia had always, See been branded as the rebel daughter-in-law, the troublemaker who wouldn't play by the rules. But with this audio, she transformed from outsider to truth-teller. She had the receipts, and no amount of denial from the Plath parents could erase what people had now heard for themselves. The ripple effect was immediate. Fans flooded online forums, social media, and comment sections with reactions that ranged from heartbreak to outrage. Many felt vindicated. They had long suspected the Plath's wholesome image was just a mask, and now Olivia had given them proof. Others sympathized with Ethan, understanding the impossible bind he was in, but frustrated by his inability to act decisively. And then there were those who championed Veronica, praising her for refusing to stay silent when others tiptoed around the truth. Her voice became a rallying cry. If Olivia could expose the audio, then why shouldn't others speak out too? What the audio ultimately revealed wasn't just about one fight, one marriage, or one family secret. It spoke to the larger theme of control versus truth that has haunted the Plaths since the beginning. Control demanded that family members stay silent, keep appearances, and never question authority. Truth demanded risk, vulnerability, and the courage to break away from tradition. Olivia chose truth. Veronica amplified it. And Ethan and Micah, caught in the middle, were forced to decide whether they would continue living in the shadow of control or finally step into the light. For long-time viewers, the moment marked a turning point. The Plath family could no longer sell their story as a wholesome, unshakable unit. The cracks were visible, the recordings undeniable, and the fallout impossible to ignore. Olivia's audio didn't just change the family, it changed how the world saw them. If there's one thing that has defined the Plath family from the beginning, it's Kim and Barry's unrelenting grip on their children. Their household wasn't just strict, it was an entire culture built on control, silence, and obedience. From no TV or internet to homeschooling Under their narrow interpretation of faith, Kim and Barry established a system where questioning authority was not just discouraged, it was considered rebellion against God and family. That foundation is what makes this latest drama with Olivia's audio and Veronica's bold truth-telling so explosive. It directly strikes at the very heart of the Plath family's long-standing power structure. For years, Kim and Barry managed to keep their image polished. TLC viewers were first shown a picture of a wholesome, disciplined family with bright, polite children. But what they didn't see behind those edited smiles was the undercurrent of fear, resentment, and fractured individuality that grew as the kids got older. Olivia experienced that firsthand when she joined the family through her marriage to Ethan, and she wasn't afraid to point out the cracks in the facade. But what's different now is that her voice is no longer the only one. With Veronica refusing to stay silent, the Plath narrative is no longer theirs to control. And that is terrifying for Kim and Barry. The siblings' responses to all of this tell a bigger story of just how divided the family has become. Take Mariah, for example. From the very beginning, she's been the sibling most emotionally torn apart by this family dynamic. Mariah has long carried the weight of being the black sheep, the one who dared to push against her parents' rules. Her heartbreak over Ethan and Olivia's struggles has been clear, but what makes it worse now is watching her once tight-knit bond with Olivia fracture under the weight of competing truths. When Olivia released the audio, Mariah seemed to feel betrayed, torn between her loyalty to her brother and her understanding of Olivia's pain. That split leaves Mariah in a raw place, reflecting the emotional wreckage caused when family secrets are dragged into the open. Lydia, on the other hand, represents the opposite side of the spectrum. Her response has been one of almost unshakable loyalty to her parents. Deeply committed to her faith and still immersed in the family structure, Lydia has consistently defended Kim and Barry, painting them not as controlling, but as loving and protective. For Lydia, Olivia's audio and Veronica's bold comments are not acts of bravery. They're attacks on the family's unity and faith. She sees them as outsiders stirring chaos where peace should remain. That stark contrast between Lydia's faith-driven devotion and Olivia and Veronica's truth-telling shows just how polarized the siblings have become. And then there are the other siblings, some quiet, some less visible on screen, who are caught in the crossfire. For them, the fallout isn't just about who's right or wrong. It's about survival in a family where taking sides can mean risking relationships, stability, and even their sense of identity. each child has had to grapple with what independence means to them, whether they lean toward following in Mariah's rebellious footsteps, Lydia's obedience, or Micah's path of carving out a new life beyond the family's shadow. What's clear in all of this is that Olivia and Veronica's willingness to speak their truths has created a ripple effect. It's no longer just about Ethan's marriage or Olivia's clash with her in-laws. It's about whether the Plath children themselves can reconcile the truth they're hearing with the version of reality Kim and Barry still want to sell. Every time Olivia speaks up, every time Veronica challenges Ethan and Micah to take responsibility, another layer of the family's carefully built image falls away. At its core, this entire fallout is a battle between control and independence. Kim and Barry built their authority on control, controlling what their children saw, who they spent time with, how they worshipped, and how they expressed themselves. But Olivia and Veronica represent independence. They show what happens when individuals refuse to stay silent, even at the cost of family unity. And in that tension lies the real story. A family no longer defined by harmony, but by a struggle over who gets to define the truth. As viewers, we can see the ripple effects stretching far beyond this one piece of leaked audio. It's not just an argument, not just a disagreement, it's a generational reckoning. The siblings are forced to pick sides, Kim and Barry are forced to confront a loss of control, and the entire Plath image is collapsing under the weight of truth that can no longer be hidden. The drama surrounding Olivia's audio and Veronica's bold whistleblowing isn't just a fleeting family feud. It's the eruption of years' worth of unresolved conflict inside the Plath household. What we're witnessing isn't about one tape, one fight, or even one outsider challenging the Plath parents' authority. This is about the crumbling of an image that Kim and Barry spent decades carefully building. The picture-perfect, God-fearing, wholesome family that supposedly lived in harmony away from the corruption of the modern world. For years, viewers have seen cracks in that image, but now, with Olivia bringing receipts and Veronica refusing to stay silent, those cracks have widened into canyons. If we rewind to earlier seasons, the signs were already there. The strict no-pop culture rules, the carefully curated country lifestyle, and the constant emphasis on obedience, they painted a glossy picture. But anyone paying attention could sense the tension simmering underneath. Ethan's explosions, Mariah's desperate need to express herself, Micah's quiet rebellion, these were symptoms of the control at play. And let's not forget Lydia, whose loyalty to her parents has been almost painful to watch as she tries to balance faith, love, and the reality that her family is far from perfect. The drama unfolding now is simply the tipping point of years of hidden resentment and suppressed voices, Finn. Allie demanding to be heard. That's where Olivia and Veronica's roles become so significant. They're not just adding fuel to the fire, they're rewriting the narrative. Olivia has been labeled the difficult outsider for years, the wife who wouldn't bend to Kim and Barry's expectations. But with her audio evidence, she proves that her perspective isn't just personal grievance, it's truth. Hard, uncomfortable, and undeniable truth. And then comes Veronica, who doesn't even have the long history with the Plaths that Olivia does, but her words cut through with brutal clarity. She calls out Ethan, she calls out Micah, and she refuses to play along with the family's game of silence. Together, Olivia and Veronica symbolize a cultural shift, younger voices standing up against authoritarian control and demanding honesty, no matter how messy it looks. This is why the audio matters so much. It's not just about what was said, it's about what it represents. For years, the Plaths controlled the story. They were the gatekeepers of their image, and anyone who questioned it was cast as disloyal, sinful, or rebellious. But with this leak, the balance of power shifted. The Plaths no longer get to dictate what fans believe. They no longer get to dismiss Olivia as bitter or paint Mariah's rebellion as childish. The evidence speaks louder than their denials, and Veronica's voice amplifies that message even further. The truth is out, and the family can't shove it back into the shadows. Fans' reactions only confirm how monumental this moment really is. Viewers who once sympathized with Kim and Barry's struggles now see the manipulation more clearly. Longtime supporters of the perfect family narrative have had to reckon with the fact that the kids' rebellions weren't teenage angst, but cries for freedom. And perhaps most importantly, fans recognize that Olivia and Veronica aren't just stirring drama, they're expo. sing a cycle of control that has hurt everyone in the family. That's why this moment matters so deeply. It isn't just entertainment. It's a reckoning. As we zoom out, the theme of truth versus image becomes impossible to ignore. The Plaths built a brand on purity, control, and separation from the world, but the very children they tried to shield are now tearing that brand apart. Ethan, Micah, Mariah, Lydia, each of them has been forced to choose between family loyalty and personal independence. And with Olivia and Veronica refusing to back down, those choices are now public. The family's old tactics of denial and silence can't hold anymore. In the end, this moment is bigger than just Olivia's audio. It's about a generational shift, a cultural demand for transparency over perfection, and a family realizing that control can't silence truth forever. The Plaths may still fight to maintain their image, but no matter how hard they try, the story is no longer theirs alone. The truth is out there. And for once, it's louder than the carefully rehearsed facade. When we step back and look at everything that's unfolded, the secrets, the audio, the confrontations, and the fallout, one thing becomes crystal clear. The Plath family has been living in a tug-of-war between the image they want to project and the raw truth that keeps breaking through the cracks. Olivia's decision to record and release her side of the story, paired with Veronica's unfiltered honesty, ripped away the veil that Kim and Barry spent decades carefully weaving. And whether you agree with how Olivia did it or not, there's no denying the courage it takes to expose what others would rather keep buried. For years, Olivia was dismissed as the outsider, the one who didn't belong, the one stirring up conflict. But what happens when the so-called outsider is the only one willing to pull the curtain back? That is the uncomfortable truth this moment forces us to confront. Then you add Veronica into the mix, someone who isn't afraid to hold Ethan and Micah accountable in ways that even fans have hesitated to. Her words sting not because they're cruel, but because they strike at the heart of what the family has been avoiding for years. She's saying what so many viewers have thought but never said out loud, that silence, avoidance, and protecting appearances only allow dysfunction to fester, and that sometimes the bravest act isn't protecting the family name, it's telling the truth, even when it hurts. Ethan and Micah, for all their progress, are still caught in the pull of loyalty, guilt, and survival. Mariah, Lydia, and the younger siblings are still wrestling with the aftershocks of their parents' control. And Kim and Barry, no matter how hard they try to redirect the narrative, can't unring the bell. Once the truth is out, it lives in the open. And there's no going back. That's what makes this moment so powerful. It's not just about Olivia's audio. It's not just about Veronica refusing to stay silent. It's about breaking cycles. It's about asking hard questions. Who gets to control the story? Who benefits from silence? And who pays the price when truth is buried to protect an image? So now I'll turn it over to you. Where do you stand in all this? Do you side with Olivia's courage? Do you empathize with Ethan's struggle? Do you respect Micah's independence? Or do you find yourself agreeing with Veronica's blunt honesty? I want to know your thoughts, so drop them in the comments below. And if you've been hooked by this journey into the heart of the Plath family, don't forget to subscribe to Sister Wives Daily. Hit that like button, share this video with others who follow the Plaths, and join the conversation. Because here, we don't shy away from the truth. We face it head on. After all, the fight between control and truth ain't just the Plath story. It's a story that resonates in every family, every community, everywhere. And sometimes the bravest thing any of us can do is speak up